Joining us now is the chairman of the Florida Republican Party, Lenny Curry. Lenny, welcome.
It's good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
On this weekend, the Florida Democratic Party is holding its convention or a conference in Orlando. I was on a conference call that you were part of not long ago, and you made it sound like it was a coven of witches meeting in Orlando. Is the Democratic Party in that bad shape?
They're very dysfunctional. The last convention or dinner that they held a few months ago, we made a lot of hay of the fact that they wouldn't let their only declared gubernatorial candidate speak, Nan Rich. And their stumbles have continued since then. The most recent one is their website is FLADems.org. They didn't secure the rights to .com. So we have .com now.
Yeah, and what are you putting up on your version of the Democratic Party?
Dysfunction, disarray, everything from their House leadership to their chairman and fundraising. It's, you know, this is just exemplifies the idea that they didn't secure a .com. This is 101. This is basic 101 operations.
Yeah. Well, I wrote an op-ed column for the Miami Herald recently in which I enumerated some of the problems of the Florida Democratic Party, but it's not as if you don't have. I mean, the Florida Republicans have their problems as well, and maybe many would say your biggest problem is Rick Scott. I mean, his approval ratings are, you know, they've never gotten out of the low 40s. How are you going to get this guy reelected?
Well, his numbers are rising, and I would say that if you look at Rick Scott came through, probably one of the nastiest primaries we've seen. And then he got into a general election with Alex Sink, and it was even nastier. Then we rolled into the presidential election where Mitt Romney and Barack Obama controlled all the airwaves, and Florida's a big state, you got to be on TV.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't an opportunity to get the message out. We're now getting the message out that Rick Scott's 365,000 private sector jobs created since he was elected, and a whole host of accomplishments.
Well, he has certainly been focused on jobs, and a lot of jobs have happened. A lot of, I think, neutral economists would say that's part of the boom and bust cycle. But, you know, the problem, it seems to me, as a veteran political reporter, and let me say, Governor Scott's a nice guy. I have no quarrel with him personally. He's just always been very gracious with me, but he is not a very charismatic person, not a very charismatic speaker. And I think, isn't that a real problem for him and for the Florida Republican Party?
It's our job as the Florida Republican Party to get the message out that 365,000 more people have a job. And if the 4 years before Rick Scott, over 830,000 people lost their job. I mean, these aren't just statistics and numbers. These are lives, real people's lives impacted. I saw it during the recession when Charlie Crist bailed and didn't want to govern. People with really good skill sets that had families to raise couldn't get to work, and now they are.
All right, so it's going to be the economy, and he ran on the slogan, let's get to work, and now the slogan is, it's working.
It is working.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Charlie Crist. Here he is, the former Reagan Republican, pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-many other things, which he used to be, is the likely nominee of the Democratic Party for governor.
It looks like the elites in the Democratic Party are forcing their base into an arranged marriage with Charlie Crist. And Charlie Crist, if and when he announces, we'll make sure that Floridians know. There's a lot of things you can say about Charlie Crist. You just mentioned some of the very important ones. But at the end of the day, he's not fit to govern and not fit to lead.
Well, it's one thing to have flip-flop on many issues, but does that make him unfit?
Well, when he was the governor of the state of Florida, and the economy got tough all over the country, there's no question about that. Yeah. He didn't stick in and lead and do things that would help mitigate the situation or even begin to turn it around.
He took money, federal money from Washington, gave the president a little hug over in Fort Myers to thank him, which was his undoing with the Republican Party. But were there not forces, no matter what he did or didn't do, there were forces larger than Charlie Crist, larger than Florida at work?
Whether it's in business or in our families or in governing, there are always forces outside of our control. Mm-hmm. But as leaders, we have to control what we can. And when Charlie Crist had the opportunity to control any number of things as governor, he decided he wanted to run for the U.S. Senate. He wanted to go to Washington. Oh, and before that, I think he wanted to be Vice President of the United States.
Yeah. Well, he was excuse me, sucking up to John McCain, hoping that, in fact, he would be the vice presidential nominee. Lenny, we have only about a minute left. I have to ask you, the fastest growing party in Florida for years now has been no party, NPA, no party affiliation. And I just know so many people who just say, I'm sick of politics. And what do you say to them?
Most people pay attention to national politics, and that's to be expected because they're leading lives. They expect their representatives to do their job. And Washington is dysfunctional and has been for many years. Our job in Florida is to try to get the message out that Florida Republicans are doing the right things here, things that are relevant to their lives, which is investing in education, getting people back to work, and basically leading a fiscally responsible state of Florida.
Well, I think that will be the message that we will hear in the congressional gubernatorial race next year. I want to invite you to come back one day for a longer interview with Allison Tant, your Democratic counterpart.
I'd love to.
All right, you've got it. I'm going to invite you both.
Thank you.
All right, Lenny Curry, thank you. All right, stay with us.